Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so we're standing at the absolute edge of a massive civilizational shift right now. For generations, the biggest tech question parents and educators had to worry about was just screen time, counting the hours kids spent staring at glowing rectangles. But as we're about to see, based on the really groundbreaking analysis from Abdi Fattah Usman Hussein's Raising Children in the Age of AI, that glowing rectangle was actually just a doorway. And what has stepped through that doorway is a highly responsive conversational artificial intelligence. We are fundamentally redefining child development, moving away from an era of passive digital consumption into one of active synthetic co-creation. Here is our roadmap for This Explainer. We'll start with the rise of the new silicon nanny and the hidden trap of a frictionless childhood. Then we'll shift to solutions, adopting an orchestration strategy, outlining a family tech blueprint, and finally, exploring how to preserve the human premium. I really want you to consider the immense weight of this shift for a second. What happens to the human soul when its primary interlocutor is a machine? Just let that sink in. When the entity answering a 4-year-old's endless why questions or narrating their bedtime stories isn't a tired, flawed, deeply loving human, but an algorithm, what actually changes inside that developing mind? To really answer that, we have to look at the history of play. For basically forever, the objects in a kid's room shared one unspoken trait. They were completely inert. Wooden blocks don't possess an inner life, right? Even a television is just a one-way mirror broadcasting light. It doesn't know your name, and it definitely doesn't sense your mid-sentence pause. But that boundary has quietly dissolved. Today's responsive devices actively listen back. They adapt to biometric cues. They negotiate narratives in real time. We have entirely shifted from inert objects to responsive entities. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the new silicon nanny and the shift from tool to presence. Say hello to the Silicon Nanny. Now, we aren't talking about some clunky metal robot walking through your front door to hand you a tray of warm milk, as delightfully retro as that sounds. It's way more subtle than that. It's a fluid, digital architecture living right inside tablets, smart speakers, and learning apps. It speaks in these warm, incredibly unhurried tones, and honestly, for exhausted parents managing a hyper-accelerated modern economy, this presence feels like an absolute miracle. It never loses its temper, it never experiences physical exhaustion, it never asks a child to wait until the dishes are done. It basically operates as an always-on secondary caregiver. Section 2, the frictionless childhood trap. The danger of perfect agreeability. Notice this concept of synthetic rapport. We know that kids naturally anthropomorphize their surroundings. They assign feelings to their teddy bears and action figures all the time. So when an AI responds to them with highly tailored, empathetic-sounding language, they form these parasocial bonds. They genuinely think the machine actually cares. But this rapport is just a flawless synthetic imitation. It's built entirely on milliseconds of calculated pattern matching. It requires absolutely zero emotional investment from the machine, none at all. And that leads us to the hidden risks of a frictionless childhood. Real human relationships are super messy. A parent grows tired, a classmate gets bored. Psychologists call this disruption and repair, and it's exactly how kids learn empathy and self-control. But a synthetic companion, it requires nothing from them. It never disagrees. This creates a fascinating but genuinely dangerous paradox. A companion that never argues actually stunts a child's emotional resilience. When an adaptive system just instantly resolves a math problem or generates a whole story, the productive struggle that builds critical thinking is completely bypassed. We are risking raising children who lack frustration tolerance, who literally can't endure unstructured boredom, and who expect all relationships to be perfectly agreeable and completely one-sided. So, how do we fix this? We pivot to Section 3, the orchestration of parenting strategy. Moving from gatekeeper to conductor. And this brilliantly illustrates the 3 stances we generally fall into when it comes to parenting and tech. On the far left, you've got passive surrender, basically letting engagement-driven algorithms raise the child, which just results in a total loss of human agency. On the far right, total prohibition, locking away all the devices. But look, AI is the foundational infrastructure of their future. Banning it just leaves them illiterate in the modern world. So the only viable path forward is the middle column, orchestration. Think about it. A conductor doesn't destroy the orchestra's instruments, nor do they let every musician just blast their horn at maximum volume. They direct the technology intentionally, deciding exactly when the digital instruments play and when absolute silence is needed to preserve real-world friction. Section 4, the Family Tech Blueprint. Actionable Guidelines for the AI Era. Before we start setting boundaries, let's talk about why we actually want this tech in our lives. Notice that giant number 2. This represents the Sigma 2 phenomenon. The educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom found that a student receiving one-on-one tutoring performs 2 full standard deviations, Sigma 2, better than a student in a standard classroom. It's massive. AI provides the very first realistic path in human history to democratize elite one-on-one tutoring for every single child. This is the positive potential we absolutely should harness. AI is an incredible bicycle for the mind, but it definitely needs guardrails. Now let's see how this builds constructively as a child grows up. From ages 0 to 6, the framework advises zero access. This is a 100% analog protective shield. Early childhood relies on physical friction, the weight of wooden blocks, the messiness of Play-Doh, to wire spatial and sensory growth. From ages 7 to 12, the child becomes a co-creator. AI is introduced, but it is strictly supervised and task-specific. You use it collaboratively for projects, actively guarding against those parasocial bonds. Then, from 13 to 18, they transition into a critical user. They get independent use with boundaries, but the focus shifts entirely to fostering ethical autonomy, verifying facts, and really understanding algorithmic bias. To actually support that roadmap, here are 3 daily routines you can implement immediately to reintroduce healthy cognitive friction. First up, the 20-minute struggle rule. When a child faces difficult homework, they must wrestle with the problem entirely unassisted for 20 solid minutes before ever consulting an AI tutor. We have to protect the struggle. Second, the tactile first principle. Every creative project must start on physical paper with a real pencil before moving to a digital prompt. And third, the manual verification habit. Train them in algorithmic skepticism. If an AI gives them a fact, they have to verify it using at least one trusted human source or a physical book. Section 5. Preserving the human premium. What cannot be automated? In an economy where automated systems can generate essays, write code, and solve complex equations in mere seconds, human value shifts entirely to what algorithms cannot duplicate. We absolutely must cultivate these unautomatable traits: deep moral reasoning and a true understanding of justice, real, messy emotional empathy, and the ability to navigate peer conflict, physical resilience and tactile intelligence, actually navigating our 3-dimensional world, and, of course, existential, creative originality, the kind forged only through lived human experience. These hyperhuman traits are exactly what will define a successful, resilient individual in a synthetic future. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. It is the core intellectual spine of this entire analysis. Before we ask what artificial intelligence will become, what kind of humans are we raising alongside it? The future of childhood isn't predetermined by tech companies. It is built every single day right in our living rooms and classrooms. Step confidently into the role of the conductor. Balance the digital instruments with the beautiful friction of the real world, and reclaim your role in raising a profoundly human child.